All right. Welcome to week 3 of our 8 weeks of the Sutras of Patanjali. I will say, if you're joining us virtually, it is storming. I'm going to apologize in advance if the service goes out or does anything weird, just because it is still continuing to storm or rain, and my service is not fantastic today. But welcome to week 3, which is super exciting. So just to kind of recap here what we have. So we've been talking about the 8 limbs of Patanjali. When we're talking about the yogic path, and we're talking about the path of the renunciates, and the path of the ascetics. Patanjali talks about samadhi, which is our ultimate bliss, our 8th limb of yoga, when we've reached that seedless contemplation, when we've reached that place of ultimate enlightenment, and what that looks like. And so he lays it out in 8 limbs for us. The first one are our abstinences, our yamas, ahimsa, which we talked about as nonviolence, satya, being truthful, asteya, which was that concept of not stealing, brahmacharya, which was that concept of physical abstinence, and parigraha, which was that principle of non-greed. And our observances are niyamas, saucha, which is purity, santosha, which was our contentment, tapas, which was our discipline, svadhyaya, which was that study of our yogic texts, and isvara pranayana, giving everything to God, or total surrender to humanity. Those were our first 2 limbs. This week we're going to be talking about our 3rd limb, asana, which is our physical practice. Next week is going to be pranayama, which is often thought of as that breathwork component, sometimes considered energy movement in yoga. Week 5 we'll talk about pratyahara, which is that looking inward of the senses. And then our last 3 weeks we'll work on those internal limbs, dharana, which is our contemplation, dhyana, which is our meditation, and samadhi, which is that ultimate bliss. So last 2 weeks we talked about our yamas and niyamas, the maharakam, the great vows, that which transcends class, race, time, and place, the 10 things that we must do. And so traditionally, if you take an Ashtanga class, those are the things you have to learn before asana. And so one of the things is there's only about 8 real words on asana. It's a pretty small portion of the 8 limbs. And when we talk about the purpose of asana, I think we have to talk about the Vedas and some of the other components. So all of this that we're doing as we follow our 8 limbs is really to get us to that place of ceaseless contemplation, to get us to that place of of nothingness, of transcendence. And so no conversation can be had about asana without talking about Ayurveda and the other Vedic sciences. And what are the Vedas? So we have the Vedas, which are older than the sutras. The sutras are a pretty late addition to our yogic texts. These were written at about 1000 BC. The Vedas date back to about 5000 BC. So they are significantly older. They are the oldest scriptures in Hinduism, and so you have your 4 Vedas, the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda, and the Arthra Veda. Each Veda has 4 divisions: the Samhitas, the Brahmans, the Arkyasas, and the Upanishads. And they are what is considered in Hindu to be apurushteya, which means they are not of man. They were superhuman, they were authorless. Like many religious texts, they have been directly given down to us. And so the Upanishads are kind of the storytelling portion of the Vedas, and in the Samhitas, that is where we find a lot of the science, and that is where we find Ayurveda. And so Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga, and it is the science of balancing the doshas, so your personal constitution. So there's this concept in yoga called prakriti, which is your natural constitution. It is how you were born. We have the 3 doshas, which are your vata, pitta, and kapha. They rule the day, and they kind of rule you as well. Everyone has a mix of all 3. We all tend to lean more towards one or the other. However, I think it's important that we know that Ayurveda exists and that it is a great complement to asana. So the ancient yogis created an entire system of science. They created a whole medical practice around balancing these doshas so you could lead a disease-free life and a pain-free life, because having a body in pain interferes with being in a blissful, meditative, contemplative state. So I always just kind of like to preface that before we talk about asana, because in the Western world, typically asana is the first practice of yoga you encounter. Some people have done some breathwork classes, some people may have done like a yoga nidra, but for the most part we come to yoga through the physical practice. A lot of us come into it through a class at like a Y or a fitness center, and we come into it from a fitness perspective, and then we stay for the fun, we stay for the philosophy, we stay for the mental well-being, and then we come to this class and we start talking about the philosophy of it. So with all of that being said, it's just important to know that all of yoga physically is to improve the body so it doesn't bother you. The goal of asana, the goal of Ayurveda is to balance your body, free it from pain, so it doesn't bother you. And I often think about how so many times when we're sitting on the floor, even just sitting in like a meditative posture is uncomfortable and it distracts you, and that is what we're trying to rid the body of. When we're talking about yoga, there is no ego in the asana practice. We're here to heal the body, to move the body, to calm that chitta, the fluctuations of the mind, right? If we go to the very beginning of our sutras, yoga, asanam, the very beginning, all we are doing, atha, yoga nusasanam, yoga chitta, vritti nirodha. Now the exposition of yoga is being made. The restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. That is the only reason we're here, is to clear the fluctuations of the mind. And if you're in pain, your mind is going to fluctuate. That is normal, that is to be expected, but yoga asana is designed to rid ourselves of that. Sathira Sukh Hamas Asana. Asana is a steady, comfortable posture. And that's it. That's all I have on asana. No. So he goes on to say, Pratya Nat Sathilya Anatha Samapati by lessening the natural tendency for restlessness and by meditating on the infinite, posture is obtained. Tato Divanada Ana Bhayagata. Therefore, after, one is not disturbed by dualities. So, the point of asana is to find a posture that is steady, to find a posture that is comfortable so that we can meditate. Asana means the posture that brings comfort and steadiness. Any pose that brings this comfort and steadiness is asana. If you can achieve one pose, that is enough. It may sound easy, but how many poses are we really comfortable and steady? As soon as we sit in a particular position, there's a small cramp here, a tiny pain here. The body must be so supple you can bend it in any way. Such a body will always be healthy and tension-free. The moment we sit down for meditation in such a body, we'll forget it. And I think that we feel that in like a really balanced asana class. So all of yoga is to get us to samadhi. All of asana is to get us to shavasana. And I think we've all been in really balanced classes and we've all been in really unbalanced classes. Where I think for me, I can tell I've had a balanced practice when I get a really good shavasana out of it. When you sink into a nice, deep meditative state where you can get to that feeling of nothingness is when you know you've had a really good class, in my opinion. And again, we all come into classes with every day is a different body. And so it changes. And that is where we get into the self-study. This is where we really start to talk about some of the earlier principles we talked about with ahimsa, that non-violence to the body. Have you exhausted your body during your asana practice to the point that you can't lay in shavasana? Like, I've had classes where I'm so exhausted by the end, where I'm huffing and puffing and you're laying there in Shavasana just trying to catch your breath. If you've ever done like a really hot Bikram class for 90 minutes where you've allowed the ego to allow you to push yourself, right? Like you don't take breaks in child's pose. You just push and push and push your body to the point that like when you get to Shavasana, you got that cold towel slung across your body and you're just heaving. And that is a really good sign that we're allowing the ego to take over and that we're maybe not necessarily hitting what we should out of asana. Because especially Shavasana, it should be the most comfortable meditative pose. So if we have gone through 50, 60, 70 minutes just to lay there and wheeze at the end of practice, that isn't necessarily the goal. It's a great learning experience, right? Like I think we've all kind of been there. Had a long, frustrating day and done too much. Or potentially sometimes we're in a little bit of pain by the time we get to asana, depending on how hard we're going, if we're pushing through injuries, we're laying there and we're trying to figure out like how to lay comfortably on the hip, or maybe the ego is still active and we have some pain in our low back. We should have some blocks behind our knees. We don't want to take them because it's not the traditional Shavasana pose. All of those things are things that we should study. Asana is a comfortable, steady posture. We have to keep our bodies flexible. To anything that makes us stiff can also break us. Only if we are supple will we never break. By lessening the natural tendency for restlessness and meditating on the infinite, posture is maintained. Because the senses want to taste many things, we load the system with toxins. Instead, we should control these things. Also, we can achieve meditation through achieve steadiness through meditation on the infinite. Anything great, huge, well settled and established. Tiny things always shake. So we can think of the earth or how steady the mountain is. Coming back to that, like with our asana practice, where are we mentally as we are flowing through this practice? Are we distracted by the things we did before? Are we distracted by the things that come after? Baron Baptiste, one of my favorite of the Culti yoga masters of today's day and age, says that we are either now, here, or we are nowhere. If we're showing up to our asana practice at home or in class and we're thinking about the Kroger grocery pickup afterwards, or if we're thinking about the morning we had and if we left the kitchen light on, those are things we can't help while we're in our physical practice. While we should be focusing on moving our bodies, healing our bodies, and preparing ourselves for meditation, the mind tends to wander. It's what the mind does. And it is a constant practice to bring ourselves into the here and now. But one of my favorites is just, are you now here or are you nowhere? Is your mind off in the distance? And so meditating on things that are well established, your personal mantras, the intention you set for class, something that will keep you now here is very important. Meditating on the infinite. Oftentimes yoga instructors will give out an intention. Sometimes it's easier for you to have your own. But we are working on lessening the tendency for natural restlessness while we are in our asana practice. One of the great misconceptions about people who meditate for hours and hours is that it's easy for them, and it's not. We have the fluctuations of the mind. We're working on mastering it. We must continually pull our mind back into our moment, back into our practice. It is a meditative posture. That is what we are here for. Therefore, one is not disturbed by dualities. Tato, Devanad, Devanava, Vigatata. If you make the posture firm and comfortable, then you are not affected by dualities. Neither heat nor cold, neither praise nor censure, profit or loss will affect you. You are neutral. Just by posture alone, you can rise above dualities because the mind is under your control. Sometimes we must show anger, sometimes we must cry, but these emotions only come for our use with our permission. When someone blesses or curses you, praises or pulls you down, whether you gain or lose $1 million, you will be neutral. Just by posture alone, you can rise above the dualities because the mind is under your control. And I think we start to see that even in our asana practice, right? I think that's why so many of us come back to our mat over and over. So even if you don't know about the 8 limbs, even if asana is your first introduction to yoga, your only practice, I think that's why we come back to our mats over and over, is because we're calming that restlessness in the mind. There is a lot of science behind the alignment of asana that really plays a part in it. A lot of asana does do a lot for the physical body. It stimulates the vagus nerve. It releases fascia, which we know from like a Western medicine standpoint does release trauma. There is so much good that comes from our asana practice. So it's not to diminish it by saying it is one of the 8 limbs. It has great, great importance. It is an unskippable step. If you are in pain, if you are in discomfort, you cannot meditate effectively. And I think that plays into so many things in our lives, right? Like if you are in pain in general, anywhere, it makes you quicker to anger. It makes you quicker to other unsavory emotions that you may not want. If your body is pain-free, I think all of us have old injuries and that kind of thing. And when you wake up on a pain-free day, you're like, let's go do some stuff, right? Like let's get moving, let's go, let's get on with it, right? So asana is super important. I think that, talking about the 8 limbs, it kind of decenters it, but there's so much good that comes from asana practice. It's one of the things that they started introducing in prisons and schools and all of these things. And we know that it is so, so good for our physical body. And it's great. And so just kind of with that in mind, one of the things that I always think is interesting is that we talk about injuries in yoga and how that is really in direct opposition with this limb. We talk about a lot of repetitive use injuries. So the last couple of weeks we kind of worked through some downward dog. We talked about our Pada Bandha, that foot lock, and we talked about that Hasta Bandha, that hand lock. We talked a lot about the shoulders. We talked a lot about the tailbone. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about that is just because it is in direct opposition with what the goal of yoga is. You should never leave yoga hurt. Yoga should not cause pain at all. We should leave better than we came in, even if that means having to leave a little ego at the door, leave a little more on the table, so to speak, and just being kinder and gentler with our bodies. It's a lot of fun to do some fun stuff, and like we should try headstands and handstands and grabbing our toes and all of that, because it's fun, and yoga should be like a physical challenge as well. But it's just something to keep in mind as we break down some of these poses and go from there. So talking about our bandhas this week. So we've kind of started at our feet and then jumped to our hands, and we're going to jump back down, and we're going to talk about our Mula Bandha, which is our deep pelvic floor, and activating it and lifting with it. And we're going to be using it quite a lot today. Today we're going to talk about forward folds because they are important. And we're going to talk about our Mula Bandha, and then we'll do some forward folds and kind of play around with those a little bit and see how we can do them really comfortably. So your Mula Bandha is found by activating the pelvic floor. Men and women can both do it. Engaging the Mula Bandha allows your energy to flow up during your asana practice. It stimulates the pelvic nerves, and it can help relieve depression. So if you're a woman, it is often described by doing Kegel exercises. That is often the way that we talk about it. For men, it is found in the perineal space, the perineum. And we're going to talk about how to engage that pelvic floor and how to activate it and why, and all that good stuff. So we talked about that bandha means lock. So we're locking that energy. We talked about engaging our feet so that the energy doesn't flow out through our feet when we're standing. We talked about the Hasta Bandha in our hands, so the energy doesn't flow out through our hands when we're in our up dog and down dog and all that good stuff. And we're going to talk about our Mula Bandha. And so sitting in a comfortable cross-legged position, we're going to start to wake our Mula Bandha up. And so as we sit here, nice and tall, we can settle our hands on our knees. We can settle our hands maybe on our abdomen if that's where we want to feel it. It's more of a lift, but sometimes just bringing your hands to your abdomen can help you kind of get in tune with that area. It's not an area we think of all the time. We want to just start to focus on lifting up. A lot of times we talk about pulling the navel to the spine, which is starting to activate the core, but that's a little bit high. And so we're really looking for that space below the belly button, above the pubic bone. And so we can think about preventing that energy from flowing into the floor, and we can start to activate those low core muscles, which is a very vague cue. So, one of the ways we activated the foot bandha was we stood and we rocked. And we're going to do the same thing here. As we sit, we're going to think about closing off that energy. And I want you to rock as far forward as you can until your back muscles start to grab you, until your weight starts to shift. And then we're going to do the same thing in reverse. Start to pull all the way back, start to feel that low belly engage. And when the weight starts to shift out of your legs, when you start to get that sensation, pull yourself back up. And the same thing here, come as far forward as you can until the weight starts to shift. Because we've got a 360-degree sling of muscles that holds up our organs, and that is the Mula Bandha. And start to feel that lift in the midsection. We're not sucking in as much as starting to lift. And as we return to center, feel how you've started to turn on those low core muscles. Without sucking in, you're finding that neutral pelvic space where there's a lift upward. It's not an in, it's an up. And so we can do the same thing by beginning to come all the way over to the left until those muscles start to catch and pulling yourself back up. And the same thing here, you should be starting to feel that low belly turn on, starting to lift up. It's comfortable. You can have your hands on your knees, or if you want to really start to activate, keep your hand on your low belly, and it's a very subtle sensation. And I like this because you're turning on, and we can start to rock 360 degrees, really feeling that scooping sensation up as you go, and taking your time with this, really seeing how far it takes, because we want that low core turned on, but we don't want to necessarily suck in, because sucking in can kind of cause a prolapse. And then coming to a nice neutral position and seeing if you feel a little more activation here. And if you're familiar with like a Kegel sensation, you can play with that too. And you should really be feeling a bit of a fire in that low pelvic sling. You're turning that energy on and you're holding it there. And that is your Mula Bandha. And you can go ahead and relax. All that good stuff there. Another great way to turn on your Mula Bandha is if you come to standing, you can find it. My favorite way to find it, if you're looking for a quick turn on, it doesn't matter which way you're going, come into your warrior two, legs, or a Trikonasana, either one, depending on how you're feeling at said moment. Look down, ensure that your front heel is in line with the arch of your back foot. So it's intersecting the arch. So you have this great alignment. Put your hands on your hips. Roll your shoulders down. And now, without moving your feet on the mat, pull your heel of your front foot toward the arch of your back foot. That lift right there, that is your Mula Bandha. That sensation when you pull your feet toward each other on the mat, that lift right down there, that's the sensation. And when you release it, you can feel energetically, where does that energy go? It's going down, it's dropping out of your body. And you can play with it, right? Like if you kind of just get into your warrior two and engage your legs, you're intending everything together. You feel that lift, you feel that stability in there. And there's a bit of a difference between those sensations. And even though we're not really warm here, but just playing with it, if you go into your Trikonasana, into your triangle pose, which I'm very stiff in right now, and same thing here, you pull everything together, you can see how just activating the heel toward the arch of my foot gives me more lift. I'm keeping that energy in my body. I'm creating lift and I'm creating stability. You can play with that like into your warrior two. You can play with that even into your reverse warrior. Where does that change your energy? Where does that change your stability? Where is it going? There. And so that is your Mula Bandha. We're going to play with it a little bit as we talk about our forward fold. We can shake it out. We can take a seat for a minute. That's a cue you hear a lot. I think the Mula Bandha is the one that we probably hear the most in most classes. It's like activate the Mula Bandha. And so there is like some inward as well. But the big one is up. When we're talking about bandhas, we're talking about locks. We're just talking about keeping that energy up and in and all that good stuff. All right, so forward folds. Forward folds create length and space in the spine. They counteract compression in the spine, and their inward nature can promote introspection. We have seated forward folds, we have standing forward folds. All of them are going to start by bringing the top of the pelvis forward. We're lengthening the front body as you go. We're keeping our neck and jaw relaxed. We're engaging our quadriceps so that the muscles around the knee are protected and stabilized. Props are your friend. If you have blocks are great, straps are great, towels are great, socks are great, all kinds of good things. So we have our Uttanasana, which is our forward fold, Ardha Uttanasana, which is that standing half lift. We have our Prasarita Padottanasana series, those wide-legged forward fold options. We have Pada Hasta Asana, that hand to foot pose or gorilla pose. Pada Angutasana, big toe pose, Janu Shirshasana, Paramrita Janu Shirshasana, our head to knee pose. Lots of good forward folds. And I think forward folds are one in which we tend to kind of let that ego take over. And so we're gonna work into it. We're gonna see how we can make these really comfortable for ourselves. So let's go ahead and start with, let's start with some down dog. Let's go ahead, or let's just start with a little bit of cat-cow. We've been sitting for a little bit too long. Let's just start with some gentle cat-cow. Moving through the motions. Exhaling as we round the spine. Inhaling, dropping the belly down. Thinking about that Hasta Bandha, right? So we've got our weight evenly distributed across all 10 fingers. We're breathing. Maybe pushing back into a little child's pose. Just opening up the body before we get into anything a little bit more. Maybe we take a little bit of a baby back bend here. Just moving with some breath, whatever you need to do. Before we start to move a little bit more. On an inhale, we can curl those toes under. On an exhale, we can push back for that downward facing dog. Breathing into it here. We're rotating those elbow creases forward. Weight is distributed across all 10 fingers. Breathing into it. And begin to walk your hands back to your feet. And we'll just start with some ragdoll. Kind of how a lot of our asana classes start is with this ragdoll, in which we are swaying side to side. Maybe we're clasping opposite elbows. Maybe we are rocking that weight forward and back. Just kind of finding where we are. This is kind of like a little bit of a playtime usually, right in the beginning of our class. Sometimes we cue the feet a little bit wider, hips distance. Seeing how that feels in the body, and then we kind of go into usually some standing twists or something like that. All of the things, and then we say bring the hands down to the mat, Uttanasana, forward fold, inhale, half lift, and we move on from it. And we continue to go through our half lifts and our forward folds 100 times throughout class. So the first thing we are going to do is in Uttanasana, we are going to talk about where the weight is and where the weight should be and how we are initiating it. So we should be initiating our forward fold from our pelvis. So we're not really going to talk a ton about foot placement at this point. We'll play with some different foot placement. If you want your feet about hips distance apart, it's a nice neutral place to start. In some of the more traditional lineages, big toes touch. It's a pretty narrow stance. Whatever is comfortable for you. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to activate my Mula Bandha. And even here you can do that just by intending your feet together. So pulling the feet in, start to find that lift. Maybe we bring our hands to our lower pelvis, or maybe we just think about squeezing everything inward, finding that lift. Hands come to the hips. And we just begin by tipping the pelvis forward and finding how far our pelvis can go before we begin to round the spine down. And then this is where our props come in. So we have these beautiful blocks that we can bring our hands to. And this is a great place, especially at the beginning of a class, to keep our hands, because we're trying to keep this pain-free. We're trying to prepare our body for Shavasana. So this is a great place to stay. And then we can use these blocks to assist with that Ardha Uttanasana, that half lift where we unround the spine. Oftentimes the cue is to bring your hands to your shins or to your thighs, wherever is comfortable. And then we can round down. Okay, so that is a great one to play with as we start out. Is the first thing we should be doing is talking about, as we come in and out of our Uttanasana, is initiating this movement from the pelvis. So oftentimes what we see in a class is that we are rounding from the spine and not getting into the hamstrings. So the important thing to remember is that your hamstrings run from just below your knees all the way to your sits bone. So if we are starting to properly initiate this movement, we need to be able to move the pelvis as well. So starting again, we're just going to start by moving those feet inward towards each other. We're just intending them together. Activate that Mula Bandha, because we're trying to initiate the movement from the pelvis and keep that energy in, and we begin to tip the whole pelvis forward before we initiate anything from the spine. So we continue to move the pelvis forward, and then we round from the spine. And we see how that changes the energy in the body. It gives us a little bit more lift, it gives us a little bit more lengthen in the spine. And we breathe into it, and we see how we create more length in the spine by pulling up and out of the pelvis first. And then we can inhale, we can take a half lift. And as we're taking that half lift, we're not changing the pelvis so much here. We're only making changes in the spine. So your Ardha Uttanasana, your half lift, is the same motion as your cat-cow. We're just taking the spine and articulating it. And so you can exhale, release back down into that forward fold. Taking a few breaths here. Uttanasana is one we don't often stay in for long. It's one we kind of pass through. And the longer we stay there, we start to think about that introspection that we find in our forward folds as we stare at our knees or our thighs. And as we kind of start to think about a little bit of that pratyahara, right, that inward withdrawal of our senses. We're not going to talk about that for like 2 more weeks. But as we talk about introspection, we talk about looking inward, and how forward folds really embody that as well. Go ahead and inhale, take a half lift. It's a long time to spend with your head towards the ground. And go ahead and you can slowly rise up. Go ahead, shake it out. We don't need to spend too much time with our heads upside down as we open up the back body. So one of the things we find is as we spend a lot of our lives seated in chairs at desks, one of the things that happens is we turn off a lot of these muscles. And while they're overstretched, they're not really turned on a ton. And so it creates some muscular imbalances that can make your forward folds like a little bit uncomfortable. The next thing we need to talk about in a proper forward fold is engaging the quadriceps and how we can do that as well. So, building from the ground up, we talked about that foot lock. We have a nice balanced foundation. We're going to turn on that Mula Bandha, which we can do by drawing our legs inward together. We're lifting up out of the pelvis, and we're going to start to engage those quadriceps. We're going to start to lift up the kneecap to make sure that we're protecting our knees as we go down. A lot of times during a forward fold, because there's all these imbalances, our knees tend to go in or they tend to go out, or something kind of wonky happens because we're trying to get as much forward fold as we can and not as, and so we're kind of like moving around the issue, so to speak. So we have our feet engaged, we have our core turned on. We're just gonna lift the kneecaps. We're not locking anything out. And so we've talked a lot about that inward rotation of the thigh, lifting up of the quadricep, and while maintaining your lifted quadricep, your lifted Mula Bandha, hands come to the hips and begin to tilt the pelvis forward. Just adding on as we go into our Uttanasana, trying to see if you can find more length in the pelvis before the feet come, before the hands come down. And so even there, just lifting my quadriceps gives me a little bit more room to come down into my forward fold. And we breathe into it as we stare at our kneecaps. We breathe in and out through our nose, and we start to feel that lengthening in the spine. Deep breath in through the nose, exhale out through the nose. Next, inhale, take a half lift. Our Ardha Uttanasana, opening up the chest. Ardha Uttanasana is super important. It actually prevents you from passing out. It helps you during your sun salutations a lot. Don't skip it. Pulling our shoulders back in our Ardha Uttanasana. We should be wide across the collarbones. Same sensation as that cow pose, right? We're kind of dropping the belly down. We still have the pelvis tilted forward. So the only thing that's really changed here is our legs are straight and our hands are on the ground. Exhale, take that forward fold. Engaging the quadriceps, think about pulling the kneecaps back. Initiating that from the pelvis. The pelvis is tilting forward, the Mula Bandha is turned on. And on an inhale, slowly roll up. Begin to shake it out. Taking it nice and slow as we roll up. And coming into our Tadasana and just thinking about how that feels different from how you typically flow through those poses, or maybe not. Maybe you always do those things when you are in a forward fold. The next set of forward folds are those Prasarita Padotanasanas, your wide-legged forward folds. There's quite a few of them. A, B, C, and D, I believe. Our wide-legged forward fold, where we are sideways on our mat. And again, I kind of wanted to break some of these down because these are poses we tend to flow through and not always so much like break down and linger in, but they're ones we see a lot in class. And so same thing here. We start by engaging our feet toward each other. So we're turning on both that foot lock and that Mula Bandha. We can find that lift there. And just for some movement, bring your feet in at a 45-degree angle. And just take a goddess squat for me. Hang into our goddess. Go ahead, pull the knees back. Turn on that Mula Bandha again. Lift it up. There we go. Feel that lift here. It's not a place we often stay, but this is a great one where you can feel that Mula Bandha turn on. Inhale, we can kind of come up into that star pose, reaching up nice and long. Exhale back into your goddess. Keep that Mula Bandha on even as you sink down. Think about keeping that energy up. Inhale, bring it back up into that star pose. Exhale one more time, goddess, just to get the legs going a little bit more. These forward folds are a little bit deep. And then inhale up to that star pose. Go ahead, bring those feet to parallel again. And from here, hands come to the hips. And we're going to begin our forward fold with our pelvis again. So we build from the ground up. We intend our feet towards each other. We engage the quadriceps. We're lifting those up to protect our knees. Hands come to the pelvis. And we're just going to begin to tilt all the way forward. We grab a block in case we need one for our hands. And we come into our Prasarita Padottanasana A, where both hands are on the ground between our legs. And we continue here to pull the feet in towards each other, intending the energy upward, lifting the quadriceps. And a great thing to do here, one of my favorites, is to turn the block on its high setting and put my head on it. It's a great place to stay if you are trying to find that edge, if you're trying to stay in this for more than a couple of breaths. And you can, of course, as you loosen up in it, lower the block, bringing your head down to it. Ooh, my block was not where I thought it was going to be. Now it is. And with your head on the block, you can really focus on lifting through the feet, pulling that pelvis forward, pulling the quadriceps back, and opening up the back body here. It creates a really beautiful full body experience. Hang out there for a couple of breaths. And when you're ready, you can walk your hands out and come into like a wide-legged half lift. I want everyone to be really careful keeping their heads upside down for that long. You can come into your half lift here. And you can flow in and out of it with your breath, bringing your head to the block. And the same cat-cow concept. We're not changing the pelvis when we come up. We're taking the roundness out of the spine. We pull the shoulders back. We open the front body. And then when we exhale, we round everything down after we've started the movement in the pelvis. Beautiful. Go ahead, inhale, take a half lift. Go ahead and point your right toes towards the front of your mat. Walk your hands over, open up into a triangle for me, nice and slow. Take a triangle pose here. You just want to make sure we get some movement in between. Thinking here about lifting that Mula Bandha. It feels good. You can inhale, bring that left hand overhead towards the front of the room. Nice big side body stretch here. Beautiful. Go ahead and exhale. Left hand down to the mat. Walk it real slow. Right toes point towards the front of the room or the front of your mat, side of your mat. Turn your left toes out. We'll just walk it all the way over. Nice and slow. Trikonasana on the second side. However you want to get there. Just continuing to move into that Trikonasana. When you get there, intending those feet together, lifting up out of the Mula Bandha, breathing into it. If you want to take that stretch, if you took it on the other side, take it on this side, breathing into it. Excellent. Go ahead and release back down through center. We'll bring both hands to our hips. Just so as we stand, active in that Mula Bandha, intend the feet together and pull yourself up through your pelvis. Beautiful. Go ahead and shake it out. Come on in. Whatever you need to do there. And so are we starting to feel a little bit of the difference in these forward folds? We're really opening up the spine and we're creating a lot of length. And so when we talk about some of these like a little bit deeper yogic concepts, like our Kundalini energy and our Ojas, our juices that live at the base of our spine, we want to be able to move that energy, and the best way to do that is by lengthening the spine. This is like a key component of it. A couple of options, of course, in this wide-legged forward fold that we can always play with as well is lifting up out of the core. We always have the option to interlace our hands behind our back. And we're going to move into this slow and with control. We're not going to like heave ourselves forward here. We're going to build it from the ground up. So first of all, uninterlace your fingers and then interlace them the uncomfortable way. Just to make your brain a little uncomfortable. Whatever way your hands were interlaced, interlace your fingers the opposite way. Opposite thumb on top.
I don't think my brain computes.
So like my hands always, I interlace them with like my right thumb on top. Put your other, it's hard, put your other thumb on top.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just to trick the brain.
Yeah.
We're just going to continue to trick the brain.
It's subtle, but I got it now.
It's an interesting one. Roll the shoulders back, starting with our feet. Intend your feet together. Lift your quadricep, and beginning with the pelvis, push the ground away, tilt your body forward, and then we begin to lift the hands up off the back, opening up the shoulders, opening up the front of the elbow here, top of the head toward the mat. And especially here, without that hand support, we need to make sure that our quadriceps are turned on, we're protecting our knees, and that our Mula Bandha is lifted and initiating that pelvic tilt. And we breathe into it, in through the nose, and out through the nose. Beautiful. Really having to keep the feet engaged here to build this pose properly. Go ahead and slowly release those hands down to your ankles. Prasarita Padottanasana C is the technical modification for when we reach down and we grab the outside of the ankles while we're here. And then we begin to pull ourselves down as well. This is a great place as well to grab a block to kind of balance out your head. Traditionally, the top of the head comes to the mat when we do this. If that is not in your practice, it's not in mine. The head can come to a block, and then you can build the length in your spine that way by pushing the quadriceps back and allowing your head to rest on something a little bit more stable. Beautiful. Very slowly walk your hands forward, take a little bit of a modified half lift. And then your Prasarita Padottanasana C is where you use your peace fingers and thumb, index finger, middle finger, and thumb to grab onto your big toes, pulling the elbow out to the side. And we use that leverage to pull ourselves a little bit further into the pose as well. Depending on what we're going for, peace fingers and thumbs stimulate the bladder meridian, help to move energy in the body. We can hold that modification for a couple of breaths. And then slowly coming up to that half lift. Go ahead and bring your hands to your hips. And from the pelvis, pull yourself all the way up. Beautiful. Nice and slow. Go ahead just to get some movement in. Bring those heels in at a 45-degree angle. Arms come up for our star pose. And we exhale into our goddess squat, maintaining that Mula Bandha. Inhale, we reach up nice and tall. Exhale, take that goddess squat. Just to get some movement after these big, long forward folds, whatever you really need here. This is just a good way to kind of keep that beautiful. Our next sort of forward fold modification as we're standing is going to be gorilla pose, Pada Hastasana. So if you've taken the last 2 weeks, Pada, which is foot, Hasta, which is hand-foot pose, gorilla pose. One of the fun ones. And this one's really good, a little bit more into your class once you're warm, because we're going to be using our hands to pull ourselves down. So for our gorilla pose, we are working to get our hands up to our wrist creases, under our foot. It's a little bit of a balance challenge in here. We get some compression in the hand. And so we're just gonna build it the same way we've built all of our other forward folds, which is by being really strong in our feet. We're gonna pull our feet in towards each other. We're gonna activate that quadricep. We're going to pull our legs together to activate that Mula Bandha. We'll begin by tilting our hips forward. And we are going to lift our toes, palm side, and then we're going to take our hands palm side up. And we're going to begin to walk our hands up our palms until they get to our wrist creases. And so, asana is a comfortable, steady pose. And so that might mean we bend our knees here a lot. And that's typically how we start it. Is we're going to bend our knees a lot, walk our hands up our feet, and then once we're there, we're feeling the compression. We have our pelvis tilted forward, and then we begin
to engage the quadriceps again, straightening the legs. Once you've found your comfortable posture here, you can start to bring the elbows out to the side, really lengthening the spine here. So we use our arm strength in this pose to create more length in the spine. And that only works if we built it correctly. So we breathe into it, really strong in the quads, and then we turn on the arms and we pull ourselves down, finding that length, breathing into it here. And then when we're ready, slowly release the hands and come into a half lift. Nice and slow, one hand at a time. Inhale for that half lift. Beautiful. Go ahead and take a nice ragdoll here, just to work out the spine before coming up to standing. These are a lot of really deep forward folds. We want to come out of these all really slowly, so we don't undo all of this lengthening that we have done. And I think that's about it for our standing forward folds, which is great because there was quite a lot of those. But are we feeling more length in the spine? Do we feel like it's a little bit more built up? Beautiful. Let's come to the top of our mats. We'll just do a little bit of movement to break it up before we get into the seated forward fold. So coming into Tadasana, building from the ground up. Inhale, reach those arms up. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, swan dive fold into your Uttanasana. Inhale for your half lift. Exhale, see if you can plant the hands on the ground, bend the knees, step back, Balikasana, plank pose, top of a push-up position, elbow creases point forward. Inhale, pushes the ground away. Exhale, slow and with control, take a chaturanga, or come all the way to the ground. Inhale, come up for whatever back bend you would like. Exhale, downward facing dog. One full round of breath here. Weight distributes across all 10 fingers. Inhale, right leg comes up, three-legged dog. Exhale, step it up for a crescent lunge. Inhale, sweeps the arms up, everything comes into the midline here. Breathing into it. Asana is a comfortable and steady posture. Everything comes in toward the midline. One more breath here because it feels good. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands come to the ground. Left foot meets right. Take it through your flow from high to low. And everyone meets in downward facing dog. Thinking about your Mula Bandha doesn't have to be a huge focus at this point. We're just trying to integrate some of that into this practice. Inhale, left leg comes up, three-legged dog. Exhale, step it up for that crescent lunge. Building from the ground up. We inhale up. Everything squeezes in toward the midline. So when we say that cue as well, think about drawing your heel of your front foot and the toe of your back foot together and see how that lifts through the midline. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands come to the mat. Take it through your flow from high to low. And everyone meets in that downward facing dog. Beautiful. Inhale, push the ground away, all 10 fingers. Make contact, the base of your fingers contacts the ground. Inhale, right leg comes up, three-legged dog. Go ahead and bend it, really open up the front of the hip. Right heel comes to the butt cheek. Open up that quad that we've been using. That feels good. Beautiful. Inhale, prepares. Exhale, step the right foot up. Warrior one. Spin that back heel in at a 45-degree angle. Rise up. Breathing here. Really feeling the spiral in the back leg as the hip points point forward. Shoulders draw down away from the ears. We breathe into it. Even here, think about intending that front heel toward the back heel. Lift the Mula Bandha. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands come to the mat. Take it through your flow from high to low. Everyone meets in our downward facing dog. Moving with the breath. Weight disperses across all 10 fingers on the inhale. Exhale, push the chest towards the earth. Inhale, left leg comes up for three-legged dog. Open up the front of the hip. Really squeeze that heel in toward the glute. Just trying to open up that quad that we've really been firing today. Inhale, prepares. Exhale, step the left foot forward for warrior one. Back heel spirals in. Inhale, we come up. Asana is a comfortable posture. You can move your feet in these standing poses. It is your posture. You're not stuck to like wherever your foot landed. You can move it. We're calming the restlessness of the mind. If you've got like one of the things that always got me was like, man, my pinky toes like all jammed up underneath me. But I guess I'll just stay here because this is where like, don't do that. If you got a toe jammed weird or something, feel free, please move it. Inhale, reach up. Sorry, we've been here for a minute. Exhale, hands come to the mat. Balikasana. Inhale, pushes the ground away. Exhale, takes us through our flow. This is your practice. You can make it your own. Find a comfortable posture. Last time through. Inhale, right leg comes up, three-legged dog. Exhale, step up for warrior two. Back foot spins in at 90 degrees. We inhale to come up. Drop the shoulders down. Asana is a steady posture. It's not necessarily a still posture, but it's steady. So oftentimes we start to work towards things like lowering that front knee so it is, the thigh is parallel to the ground. But if that is causing pain, we should back out a little bit. One more breath here. Inhale. Exhale, cartwheel the hands to the mat. Take it through your flow. Do what your body needs for it to be a steady and comfortable posture. moving with your breath. Inhale, left leg comes up. Exhale, we step it up. Warrior two, second side. Land the foot before we rise. Build it up so when you're here, you are steady. If you want to activate the Mula Bandha here, keep that energy from falling out. Pull the heel of the front foot towards the arch of the back. Breathe into it. Are you steady? Excellent. Inhale, prepares. Exhale, cartwheel the hands to the mat last time through this flow. Move with your breath. Move so you are steady. Move in a way that calms the chitta, vritti, the fluctuations of the mind. Exhaling, knees come to the mat, hips come to the heels, forehead comes to the mat. Come on into that child's pose. Take a couple of breaths for me. Before we work into some of the seated forward folds, we go through a couple of them. We're gonna build them up the same way we built the standing forward folds, because we're going to work toward the same thing, which is the lengthening of the spine and that introspection. And so one of the things we talk about is proprioception, which is knowing where your body is in space. I have no idea where my body is in space at any point in time. I run into things and fall down all the time. But one of the things you can do, and one of the things that happens, is sometimes our bodies need a little bit of help recalibrating with our proprioception. And one of the things we can do, and you can do this in standing poses as well. It's a really fun way to build a forward fold, is if you have a block or a blanket, giving yourself something to fold forward over, even in like a child's pose, changes something neurologically in your body. It tells your body where you're going and is very soothing. And so you can, blocks are a little big sometimes, but you can really start to build the link in your spine if you are someone who is not particularly flexible. It helps to give your body something to round over. And I forgot to talk about this in the standing poses, but you can do the same thing. And you can play with that if you have like a sweater or a bolster. If you come into your child's pose or a block and allow your body to hang over something and take a couple of deep breaths, it can allow you to access a little bit more length, because your body is always going to want to not hurt itself, and hanging out in space is not super ideal, and so it can change that posture a lot. And so we can move into our seated forward folds. I'm going to grab a towel or two just for some props. If you have maybe a strap, straps are great. If you don't have a strap, a hand towel is great. All of the things, you can really get creative with this. But we're going to talk about building our forward folds from the ground. You can also sit on a block if you would like, for some of our forward folds or a bolster. I think blocks are a little uncomfortable to sit on if we're being entirely honest. I think it's a little too much. But it does give you a really good way, if you just want to play with your pelvis, the same way we started standing, you have a block. If you sit on it, we can start to really initiate the same buildup, right? So we can activate our feet, we can activate our quads, and we can start to move our pelvis. And if you kind of sit on the, I think it helps if you sit on the edge of the block. Ooh, this is not a very sturdy block. Depending on the block, it can help to start to initiate that pelvic move. And so one of the things as well is it's a little bit harder to move your pelvis when you're sitting on it. It is what it is. Oftentimes in seated forward folds, it helps to bend the knee. It takes a little bit of the stress off the hamstring so we can tilt the pelvis, because oftentimes in seated forward folds we see this. Which, well, this is a nice back stretch. Doesn't cause that lengthening of the spine. We want to be able to lift up and then forward. So same concept there. We start all of our forward folds from Dandasana, which is similar to Tadasana. This is our staff pose. I like to move the hip out of the way. You can move it back. Activate all 10 toes. Activate our quadriceps. These are all the same things. And we're going to work into our Janu Shirshasana first, which is head to knee pose, wherein we'll take our right leg, doesn't matter which leg really, and we pull it in. But the important part is our knee comes out wide without moving the pelvis. So we're not opening here. We'll talk about the open pose later, but we're just pulling this in somewhere along here, and we check in that our hips have stayed square, and we initiate the movement from the pelvis. So we roll the pelvis forward, and then our hands come forward, and we maintain the length in the spine. And once we have done so, and then we start to roll forward. This is a great time. If you have a strap or a blanket or any of those things, feel free to use it if your foot is not accessible. You can grab onto the calf or the thigh, those are great too. But really, if you're trying to create the length, I like being anchored to the foot more. I think it gives, again, that sense of proprioception of like, where is my foot before I can reach it. I think it's just a little bit of a different sensation. If you don't have a strap, that's great, but I think it creates a little bit of a different sensation if you can get that pressure on the foot for Janu Shirshasana. And once again, we're just staring at our knees here. Nothing else to see. It's all the same pose, just in a different way. And we're working on pulling that pelvis forward. That quad activates and the pelvis tilts. The arms are artificial here. Our arms are just where our arms are. There's nothing, they're not pulling. I mean, they are a little bit, but they're not, the arms and the shoulders are superfluous to what your spine is doing here. We're relaxing into it. Asana is comfortable.
So if you need to bend your knee, any of those things, that is what we are here for. Asana is a comfortable seat. And I want us to come out of this really nice and slow. And so the way I like to come out of it is by dropping my hands down to the mat and then slide them up so you have that base and that stability. And then because I love the counter pose when I'm on the ground, inhale, watch your right arm come up, watch it land behind your hip. Lift yourself up into like a little baby wild thing for me. Open up the front of your body. Open up the front of your hip. And exhale, send it back down. And we will go into our revolved Janu-Shirshasana. And that is moved so I can be seen a little bit better. But our revolved Janu-Shirshasana is where we get into like a little bit of a side bend here. So we set it up from our Dandasana the same way we did before, except we're going to revolve it. So we bring the right leg back in, we'll do the same leg, and we're going to open the hip. So my foot is almost touching my Mula Bandha here. And I open to the side, and we are going to tilt the pelvis, and we're going to reach for our big toe with our left hand, and we're going to inhale, the right hand comes up and over, and it's the side bend version of this forward fold. Again, if we have a strap, we put it around the foot, we reach for the strap wherever it is to create that proprioception there. We can hook the strap around our foot and use it to pull, experimenting with where we need to be to make this asana a comfortable seat. Same thing here, when we come out of it, drop both hands down to the mat, slide them up, and then we'll work into these two poses on our second side, really focusing on the setup, our Dandasana, sitting up tall, activate the quadriceps, activate the toes, bring that left leg in, keeping the hips straight, pull the right hip back, inhale, we lift up, out of the pelvis, and you can even rock the pelvis here. If you want to ensure there's no rush with building these forward folds, you can rock that pelvis first, making sure we get that pelvic tilt, and then the arms just come forward. We just surrender into it. And one of the things you can play with in Janu-Shirshasana, Janu-Shirshasana translates as head to knee pose. You can play with, if your head does not go there, bend the knee until your head reaches the knee, and see how that changes it. Creates a little bit of a throat lock sensation, but you can bend that knee up to your head and then work on straightening it to make your way down. A couple of different modifications there. Again, you can play with that to get that proprioception, get that connection in the body. Beautiful. And then we'll just come out of that really slow and controlled, the same way. Hands down by the side of the leg. And then working our way up You can inhale, watch that left arm come up. Open up the front of the hip. Oh yeah, that feels really good. Exhale, lower it down. And then we'll set up for our revolved, which I'll turn around for, where we pull our left hip in. This is the open version, right? Left foot comes into the Mula Bandha, thereabout. We sit up nice and tall. You can untuck that left hip if you need. Play with that rock in the pelvis. Make sure that's where that movement comes from. And then we just tilt over, reaching for the toe, opening up into the side stretch here. Observing without judgment the difference between that left and right side. Beautiful. Using a strap if we need to, so we're not hanging out in space. That way we get that full connection through the body. Excellent. And slow and with control, we'll come out. And now we'll do the full forward fold. Now that we've spent like all this time working into it, we know how to set it up. I am sitting in a hole and tilted backward at this present moment. We'll set up for the full forward fold. This is a great time if you want to sit on a block to tilt the pelvis or bend the knees. I'm going to bend the knees just to take the stress off my low back because that's where my flexibility is. But from my Dandasana, I'm going to put my hands behind my knees and just tilt my pelvis forward. Inhaling, I find length. Slowly walking myself forward, pulling my chest forward first, finding the length, walking my hips back. Before I begin to round down, again, I can take a towel here and really take a lot of the pressure off of this pose. Asana is a comfortable seat. If your elbows are up by your ears, it's probably not comfortable or steady. You can bend your knees here a lot. The more you bend your knees, the more you'll find a little bit more in the pelvis. And we breathe into it. Asana is a steady, comfortable posture. Is your mind restless here? As you stare at your kneecaps, as you compress your abdomen, your organs, as you lengthen your spine, is your mind restless? And if so, is it because of discomfort in the body? And should we be modifying in some way or another? All right, the only way to come out of this is slowly. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, drop your hands down to the mat. Slide them all the way back until you are in Dandasana. And then from Dandasana, walk your hands back, open up your shoulders, plant your feet. Inhale, prepares. Exhale, push up into into your reverse tabletop and open up the front body. Active in the glute, lifting with the Mula Bandha. Exhale, slowly lower the hips back down. Legs come out long in front of you. Drop the elbows down. Fish pose. Open up the chest. Breathing into it. Push the elbows into the ground. Really lift the chest. Open up the front body. And then when you're ready, slide all the way onto your back. Surrendering all the way down. Hug your knees into your chest. And then we're going to release some of that forward folding we've been doing. Go ahead, stretch your legs out long along the mat. Inhale, arms up overhead. Point your toes, take a real big full body stretch. Oh no, I have glass above my head. And from here, we're going to go into the very aptly named Banana Asana. So go ahead and walk your feet to the left side of the mat, opening up the right side, and then do the same with your hands and arms. Walk them over towards the left. So we're opening up the right side of the body. We did a lot of compression of the abdomen today. When we're here in Banana Asana, we want to ensure that this is not a twist. We'll twist in a moment. We have equal weight in the left and right hips. If you need more, your left hand can grab onto your right wrist and give it a gentle tug, just to create more space in the armpit and the ribs. If you need more in the low body, the right ankle can come up over the left. Breathing into it. And when you're ready, you can release anything that is bound. Walk everything back to the middle. Take that big full body stretch. Reach the arms out long overhead, point the toes. Maybe arch the back and go, push the shoulders into the ground. Let it go. Second side, walk the feet over to the right side of the mat, opening up the left hip. And then walk the arms up overhead, over to the left, equal weight in left and right shoulders, and left and right hips. As we breathe into it. If you need more, you can use your right arm to grab onto that left wrist to create some gentle traction. If you can cross the left ankle over the right without lifting the hip, that's an option too. Sending the breath where you need it. Asana is a comfortable, steady, meditative posture. All of yoga leads to meditation. All of asana leads to meditation. All of yoga leads to samadhi. Slowly begin to unbind anything that is bound. Walk everything back to center. Take that nice big full body stretch, point the toes, reach the fingertips. And go ahead and bring that right knee into the chest, give it a hug. Rock it around. Go ahead and take the right knee in your right hand. Left hand comes to your left hip to anchor it and open that right knee out to the side, keeping the left hip down. And when you're ready, cross the right knee across the body, coming into a twist. Releasing anything that may have been built up during this practice. Looking over your right shoulder, working to get your right shoulder back on the ground. If you need to, you can bring your left hand to your right thigh. Give it a gentle tug.
But remembering that asana is a comfortable, steady posture. If it is too much, we don't do it. And one last stretch for the right leg. Go ahead and roll onto your back. Keep the right leg in. Go ahead and take the left arm around the right foot. Go ahead and wrap it in a reverse figure 4. We can wrap our left hand around our right shin. Right hand comes to right knee. There we go. Cute, that a little strange. Kind of our reverse pigeon. That's what I'm thinking. Our pigeon on the ground. Breathing into the right hip. Before we let the right leg go out long, go ahead, rock the hips out. Before we take all that on the second side. Allow the right leg to go out long, and then the left leg will come in. We'll hug that knee into the chest. Our last time compressing the front body. We'll bring the right hand to the right hip to anchor it, and go ahead and we'll open the left leg out as far as we can comfortably. Remembering that asana is comfortable and the mind should be restless. Alright, we've had enough opening the hip. You can transfer the left leg into the right arm, guiding across the body. Start to look over the left shoulder, coming to our twist. Breathing into it. Allow yourself to really roll onto that right side so the left glute shines bright. Sending the breath where you need it. And when you've had your fill, roll onto your back, keeping that left leg in. You can wrap the right hand around the right foot, around the left foot, and rock it in your reverse pigeon. Allowing yourself to open up with deep hip rotators. Allow the leg to go out long. Last pose here, just to open up the front of the body before Shavasana. And go ahead, plant both feet on the ground, walk them in as close as you can to your glute. Go into a quick bridge to open up the front body. Heels should be in close enough you can reach them. Roll the shoulders underneath your body. Inhale, lift the hips up off the ground. If it's comfortable and accessible, interlace the fingers behind the back. Press the triceps into the ground. Open the chest. Allow the weight to rotate onto the trap muscles. Inhale, lifts the hips higher. Exhale, lower everything down to the ground. Rock your knees into your chest. Take a happy baby. Take what you need here before we settle in to our final relaxation pose. All of yoga leads to samadhi. All of asana leads to shavasana. As we come to surrender to our mats on our back, our legs come out at roughly a 45-degree angle from our body. Feet relax, open. Shavasana seals the practice, so we allow the thighs to spiral outward, kind of the opposite of what we've been doing. We're spiraling the thighs inward, securing the tailbone back in place. Arms mirror the legs, palms up to accept the energy in the room. Palms down to ground ourselves within our own bodies. Where can you let go more? Where do you hold chronic patterns? Where do you have trouble spots? If the point of asana is to ready the body for Shavasana, then where in your practice should you be focusing your attention? Where in your self-care routines should we put in the work so we can create a body that can find a comfortable posture? And maybe for some of us it's a lot harder practice. Maybe we need the inversions and the handstands and all of those things to really push our bodies, to work our bodies, to find that. But asana is a comfortable seat. And how do we get there?
so much more than asana. But we live in our bodies every day. Our only true companion is our mind. Our only vessel in this lifetime is our body. Asana is about finding a steady and comfortable posture. What can you do to be steady and comfortable in your practice? Inhale in through the nose. Exhale out through the mouth. Sealing and releasing this practice. Come back to your body by wiggling your fingers and toes. Start to wiggle the wrists, wiggle the ankles, all those extremities. When you're ready, roll onto your right side in that fetal position. Right hand supports the head, left arm comes out in front of you. And if you can, with your eyes closed, begin to push yourself up into a comfortable cross-legged or seated position. It has been my honor to guide you through this practice. May your asana practice be comfortable. May your asanas be steady. Namaste.